Call the Willmar City Council meeting for Monday, October 19th to
This
order.
conference will
Roll
now
call.
be recorded.
Mayor Calvin,
Here.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Here.
Maskey,
Here.
Schwantes. Here. Davis.
Here.
Alvarado.
Here.
Osmus. Here. Plowman.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the proposed, or are there any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda as presented?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Next we have consent items. City Clerk Thompson.
On tonight's consent agenda, we have for council's approval the city council minutes of October 5th, Willmar Municipal Utilities Commission minutes of October 12th, accounts payable report for October 1 through 14. For council's acceptance, the police commission minutes of August 11th, building report for the month of September 2020, and for council's information, the Invest in Willmar board minutes of September 9th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the consent items. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes as well. Next, this evening, we have a presentation of the J.C. Penney site proposal for a combination city hall/community center. This is an opportunity that has been presented to the council and the city to consider using a portion of uptown Willmar as a location for our city hall and our community center. The back work that has been done on this is the City Hall Task Force and the Community Center Task Force through the Local Ops and Sales Tax have met and have received presentations from the Willmar 10 group. And this evening, the council will be receiving that report as well. And to do that report this evening, I'd like to introduce Dion Warren with Willmar 10. Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mayor Kelvin, and thank you, Council, for having us on the agenda tonight. We know, we as Willmar 10, I'm one of the 8 people that are owners of Willmar 10. We're a partnership development investors here in town. As many of you know already, own about 7 different buildings in the city. And we just appreciate the opportunity that you've given us to present this to the City Council. We recognize and want to thank you for all the time that you spent working on the City Hall project and then also on the Community Center project. We know there's a lot of work. I went to 1 or 2 of those meetings. It's been a long time and there's been a lot of effort put into it. And I want you to know from Willmar 10, we totally respect the effort and time you've put forth. What we're bringing to you or like to talk to you about today is something that was not available to the subcommittees before. About 90 days ago or so, Kelly Truisha, who's with us here in the audience, who's also part of Willmar 10, came into my office and said, "Hey, Dion, how about if we look at the JCPenney site as a combination for the City Hall and the Community Center?" You had voted to put both of them together on the north site there where the Community Center is now. And so Kelly thought, well, the JCPenney's is now available because JCPenney's announced they were closing. And so we mulled around for about a month or two, and we kind of looked at how that might work, looking at the location, looking at the needs that the city and the community, the city has for City Hall, and also the needs they have for the community center, and felt that this might be the ticket for an opportunity. When the pause came, when COVID came and the city paused the development of the north site where the community center is now, we just felt that gave us an opportunity to come to you with an idea. Excuse me. In the packets that Brian put together, you'll see some drawings that we have for just conceptual drawings. Obviously, what we're looking at and is taking Penney's as it is now and taking the south half of it and making that the community center. The north half of it would be for City Hall. The concept is that you'd walk into that space, and as you walk in, you would see a big corridor that we'd like to what we kind of refer to as a gathering space. In that corridor, we envision kind of using different images or fronts of downtown Willmar. So as you walk into the gathering space or the common hallway, that it'll be lit by a skylight. We see that you would kind of have reminisce about what was downtown Willmar before. So maybe it's the front of Elmquist Jewelers or the front of your favorite cafe when you were growing up here or whatever it might be. And that kind of builds the community sense of it, because even though it's not downtown anymore, in fact, now it's in uptown Willmar at what used to be called the Candy Mall, you still feel that it's Willmar. And I think that was kind of more of a nostalgic feel we wanted to have. And as you can see on the site, we have the picture of Penney's as it is now, and as what it would be, and we would have lots of windows, new roof. It has a separate HVAC system. It has a separate standpipe for the sprinkler system. I was not here back in the 70s, but actually Trish's construction built JCPenney onto the mall after the mall was built. And if you step back and look at it, you can kind of see how Herberger's was kind of added on one end and Kmart on the other end, and then Penney's on this side. So this building is 52,000 square feet, approximately. We were in there today and had an opportunity to go through the building just to confirm some of the things that we were concerned about, whether, as far as fire suppression and things like that. And it's already set up on its own utilities, all that kind of thing. So that's kind of a bonus or a nice project to start with when it's already like that. In addition to some of the other images we shared with you tonight, you can see where the location, obviously all of you know where the location is, but just the proximity is to so many things in Willmar. So obviously when you walk out the door, the east door of the mall and you see the JCPenney site, you probably can see all the 4 major grocery stores that Willmar has. You're within 2 blocks of the clinic. You're within a couple of blocks of Bethesda. It is truly in the center of town. It used to be, and before my day, people say that the mall was almost built out in the country. But now it truly is pretty much in the center of all that goes on in Willmar. Probably the last image we want to talk about is just when we look at the mall and we think about the uptown Willmar and the space it has, a lot of people are concerned about the site, just the site itself. There's a lot of asphalt there. The one drawing shows how we plan to green that up. So we would bring green space, remove asphalt, and bring green space into the mall. How we do that is just because when we acquire the parcel, we're going to acquire enough space that we can do with what we want to on that site. Let me put away my drawings here a second and get back to my... As you know, on September 16th, we met with the subcommittees at the fire hall, and we did a presentation there. And we were happy to receive an 11-2 vote to move further ahead on this project, or at least the concept of this project. Some of the feedback that we got that day was interesting to us because we assumed that the seniors that use a community center really love the site they have now. As the conversation went along, and Councilperson Schwanis did the goods and the bads, or the good points and the bad points everybody had that was on the committees, what they thought of the meeting, we were happy to find out that most of them were happy to have the site as a possibility because of the fact that the traffic. you can get to this site on 30-mile-an-hour streets rather than the Highway 71 and the 60 miles an hour 60-mile-an-hour speed out there. And so I honestly thought when we went through that day, we'd have more concerned about that. I mean, more concerned about leaving that site, but I think that the seniors that use the community center are looking forward to an opportunity to have a bigger space and have a space that's centrally located and a space that's easy to get to. And aside from that, the City Hall space too is easily accessible to everyone at that location at the Uptown Mall. The other thing that I think is important, or that I guess I hadn't thought until afterward, if this is something that we can move forward, investigate with the city staff and the city council to move forward, gives us an opportunity that you're only going to move one time. The senior center can stay there, the community center can stay there, City Hall can stay where it is, and then once it's finished, it's time to move in. And I think one of the things that people maybe had a misconception about that day was that when we told them that we would buy that parcel and develop it, I think some people think that this is part of the mall. Well, it won't be, because what we would do, we have an agreement, a letter of intent already with Rockstep, that we would buy the JCPenney space, and we're going to, and probably about 3 or 4 acres around it. It'll become a separate legal entity, a separate, if it was a tax-paying place, it'd be a separate tax parcel. And it would be connected to the mall, of course, still through the common door from JCPenney into the mall. But it's not an improvement to the mall as such. It's a separate spot. So imagine if you have a condominium and you own your space and your neighbor owns their space. That's what this would be. Willmar 10 would own that space of the 52,000 square feet and the 3 or 4 acres, and Rockstep would continue to own the rest of the mall. One of the other concerns that people had is, well, what happens if something happened to the mall and it wouldn't be here? But if the mall, and I hope this never happened, because that would be a big black hole in the city of Willmar. If the mall ever wasn't there, this would still be there, because you just fill in the hole or the entry into the mall, and it's already an outside wall on the west side. It's already a standalone space. You already have your own parking. It would still be there. So just to update you where we are right now, we have a Willmar 10, when I say we, Willmar 10 has a letter of intent with Rockstep, so we already agreed upon a price to purchase this parcel. We would move forward and handle the construction of it after we do design work with the city, find out what the city would want in it for the City Hall and for the community center. And then this is something we need to work out, is how long would we do a lease, and eventually we would have the city purchase it. So just to remind people, it is a separate parcel and a separate thing that eventually the city would own. And that's some of the things we want to work through, and that's one of the reasons we're here tonight, is to get the go-ahead from you to go ahead and work with your city staff to get to the spot where we can work through some of the issues of how we handle the lease and how to handle the purchase and how we handle the construction. When I was getting ready for this meeting tonight, I was looking at the mission statement that was on the front of the beginning of the agenda. And I thought it was interesting because I think that we meet some of these things. The community values for the city of Willmar, fiscal responsibility, excellence in delivery of service, quality service, ethics and integrity, visionary leadership and planning, open and honest communication, professionalism. For sure, I feel this project hits 3 of those, and one of those would be visionary leadership and planning. And the idea there is that oftentimes the city council is asked to approve tax abatements or tax incentive financing, different things like that. This would be a project, we believe, that just by building the city hall there and the community center, that in itself will spur economic development on 5th Street. 5th Street is a thoroughfare that the city wants to have built to take some pressure off 1st Street and develop a second retail corridor. And right now, from Cashwise down to Home Depot, or at least down to the old Candy Entertainment Center, that part we think would help get filled in if this came there. I see this as a kind of diamond type property. It would be a very professional looking building, be the center, it would be the center of the city government and also the community center. And, we can't guarantee this would happen, but I would see, as a person that's been in development in this city, pads along 5th Street and the mall side being sold and developed into other things. And it would just come naturally because of the excitement I think that would build by having the city hall and the community center there. The other thing I see is fiscal responsibility. One of the other values for the city council and the city. If we're quite confident that we can deliver a product to you that's what you want, what you need for probably a little bit bigger space, but most likely our numbers right now tell us we can do it at 20% less cost. So that'd be the fiscal responsibility portion. And then excellence in delivery of service. Community center is in need of a new space. We were out there and toured it today. Britta was able to show us around. We think that there's obviously, you've already decided there's a need for something new there. Obviously, you're going to use the local option sales tax. So the excellence in delivery of service is another opportunity to deliver on that by building this new building. We'll build the building and you guys can move into it at the Uptown Willmar site. So I'm not sure, our goal here tonight is to basically see if the city will vote or if there'd be a motion that you'd be able to vote on to allow us to continue to work on this. Obviously, we spent some time and effort and some money into this deal so far. And before we go much further, we would need input from the city to see exactly what your needs are so we can actually price it out and design it and to see if it works. We think that we know that with your help and your ability to help us work on this together, we'll be able to get you some more hard prices. I know that one of the things that is no doubt a concern is finding out if we truly are able to save you 20% on the project. I know that the budget and the agenda that was sent to me that there's budgeted $10.5 million to do this. I don't know if you even have actual costs of what your concept is going to be on the North 71 site, but if we had the opportunity to work with you and your city staff to work through both the building side of it and then the legalities of the lease and purchase, I think, we'd come to a number, then you'd know for sure if it works or not. Do you have questions for me?
Dion, thank you for your presentation. It was very thorough and gave us the framework as to which to leap off on the discussion. So at this time, are there council members that have questions that they would like to raise? Councilmember Schwantes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not as much a question as maybe some additional comments.
Sure.
And first, Mr. Warren, I'd like to thank you for your presentation both tonight and also when we met as a joint task force for the City Hall and the Community Center. I appreciate your time. Mm-hmm. And I also appreciate the time and effort that the joint task force members put into attending and the conversation that took place that day. You've mentioned a number of the items that we talked about. Hard to understand. You mentioned a number of the items that we talked about in that meeting, but I thought it would be worth some time and just to honor the work and effort of the people that day when we heard the presentation and then discussed it to bring those forward again this evening. And so after the presentation was done, we did talk about the pros and cons of each site. Now, earlier today, the council members did receive an email from Brian Caith, who is the chair for the Community Center Task Force. And we had talked and thought it was important for the council to be able to have those items and review them. But I also know that it was sent out later in the day. So again, the reason why I'd like to go over a couple of those items. So the pros that were discussed at that meeting was that there is more space here. It is 20,000 square feet, so you can say it's also 24,000 square feet more that would be an expense. That's also negotiable as to the amount of square footage that we would actually use. One of the points that was discussed is that in every tour we took, it seemed like the feedback we got was there was not enough storage. And that's just expensive space normally, but that might be an option for us to be able to have that much more space than we would have otherwise. But there's an opportunity to expand and do more services or more activities than perhaps we otherwise would have done in a smaller location. Probably the number one thing that we heard from the task force members was the location and the proximity. And in our packets, we have the benefit of seeing the map that Mr. Warren was referring to. If members listening at home would like to go online to the city website, pull up the agenda, you can see the architectural drawings and some of the items that were discussed. So I just point that out for those at home. But that proximity to businesses, the proximity to different social things in the community was a real advantage. And I also was very surprised to hear Britta talk about the feedback she had gotten from our senior citizens that they liked that site because of its proximity. There would be ample parking. It would be accessible both by vehicles and also by pedestrians. The green space that would be available, and understanding there's also green space at the current site that we are looking at. The internal layout, people liked the architectural drawings that were presented and the idea of having the community center on one side and City Hall on another side. Now granted, combining them, the two of them together, would bring us some efficiency of space and lower costs, but the concept was well received. There was also discussion about the external layout, and again, the parking, possibly an awning over it, and those are also features that we would be able to have at either location. But the cost in saving 20% of what the cost would be otherwise certainly sparked people's attention. But again, if we're using more space, there would be that. What is the cost of that? There was also an appreciation for the fact that Willmar 10 is a local group of investors and a good reputation, and so we appreciated that. Safety with the access. My feedback that I had heard when we were looking at the different sites, when we were looking at Robbins Island in particular, people did not like that option because of going down Highway 23, the fast-moving traffic, having to cross the lanes. And so the community center was preferred over Robbins Island. But as we talked about that, and it was brought up, they don't like having to go at that faster speed, even if we're going to the senior citizens' current community center, excuse me for using that wrong term. And so then there was a discussion about coming down Lakeland to get there, and that was, well, we don't like the train and having to wait for that. So one individual mentioned she takes 23, but again, the feedback was that that was not a preferred option, and that it would be safer for individuals to be able to access the uptown, the former J.C. Penney location. Walking at the mall is a positive for many of the people, and they found that a benefit, that it would be convenient to be able to use that space still to walk. And one of the items that's not included on this sheet, but we did talk about and was alluded to just a little bit here, but the economic development that it might spur along 5th Street and just bringing more attention to the uptown mall. On the flip side of that, the cost is unclear. We have questions about that, and we would want to have further conversation. The community garden that is across the street, and some safety concerns for it, the location of that, if people were wanting to be at the community center and then back and forth to the garden. We don't already include or own that property. It opens up discussions again, and we don't want to open up a whole nother can of worms and undo the work that has already been done. Another con was that the current community center location, some of us really liked it and liked the idea of being located at the current community center. And then limited by the physical shape of the building, you've got the footprint in place right now, not an option for a second floor, but quite frankly, many of the people in the room thought we like a one-story building and having all that space on the first floor. And if you have an opportunity to see the renderings, you can see that it doesn't look like the mall looks like today. There's an opportunity for windows and enhancements in the building. But another concern being that it is tied to the mall, and the future of the mall is unknown, and some concerns in regard to that. So I wanted to honor the work that was done by the task force. I thank you for including a number of those items in your presentation, but did want to point that out.
For the listening public and the viewing public, if you're going to the council agenda, if you start at page 50 of the agenda, that is where you'll start seeing the renderings in the documentation start just prior to that and then follow that. Additional comments from council members? Councilmember Osmus.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation, Tian. Just a few more comments about this location. I happen to be on the City Hall Task Force, and then I'm also on the Community Center Committee. And so I kind of had a dual interest in this for both people looking at the possibility of utilizing this space. When we started discussions with the senior club out at the community center, a big concern that they had is, like Councilmember Swant has pointed out, they love their space. And I wouldn't say I promised them, but I said I would advocate that if there was a new location and what was going to happen with the new building, I would fight that they would not lose anything. They were concerned that they were going to lose their wood shop. They were going to lose their space that they have to do their dances or their stuff. And I said, that's not the intent. The intent is to enhance it. And when I saw that the footprint of the present community center fits inside that south location and then some, because as Councilmember Schwant just pointed out, we need more storage. That's where part of the issue is now with the community center. I knew that would work. And so that was refreshing, and I was excited to see that. The other thing then was, what was the wishes of the senior club? They are major stakeholders in the community center. They're not the only users, but they're the majority of the users. And they've had a couple of presentations, and they are in favor of the new location. So I wasn't feeling that I would be a voice for them if they didn't like it. If they didn't want to move, then I would honor their wishes. But they have almost unanimously said, for a lot of the reasons that you've mentioned, and Councilmember Schwantes mentioned, that the new location, or the location at J.C. Penney's, they liked the idea. So then I could get behind it very comfortably. The other thing, when we talk about the proximity of where this is, one thing that hasn't been brought up is that it's also close to the middle school. Now, when we start to look at, we think about the community center of how we use it now, but I think there's a whole lot more uses for it that we just haven't utilized yet. So being close to the middle school, or some people might know it as the junior high, that opens up opportunity within walking distance for some programming for the youth in the center of this particular business district. We pretty much touched on a lot of the things that the senior club was concerned about, as far as plenty of handicap parking, the awning to be able to have a drive up, and I think that would be good on both sides, the City Hall side and the community center side, because I think of like the IT people hauling out computer equipment and stuff. It'd be nice to be able to have a sheltered area to get their stuff out and load it into vans or cars or whatever. But that's just a little technical point. But just adding the green space to that area of the mall area and Fifth Street, I compare it to like the Quick Trip downtown. Just adding the bushes and the green space and a new building just opened up the corridor to the downtown. You come off the First Street Bridge, and it just looks like a new space there. And I could see with some trees and some green space how that would enhance this particular area. So I'm just, that was I also received some phone calls and some emails in favor of this location. So to me, what it comes down to is the financing. And one question that hasn't been answered yet is, can we get out of the present contracts if we were to choose this location with the architect that we did select? And I don't know that that's been answered yet, but I would need to know that. And then for, again, how long we could lease, given the economic times right now, what's going to happen to our local government aid, and the future of a lot of our small businesses, and what happens to our tax base.
Thank you. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Dion, for being here, and Mr. Terwisha for your hard work. You know, this isn't a new idea. When I first ran for council in 1990, Senior Citizen Club was looking for a location, and I had talked with John Tradup, who was the mall manager at that time. We were going to come up with a project, but then the Elks building came available, and the city bought that. And that's where the Senior Citizen Center is. Like Julie said, you know, it used to be the Senior Citizen Center, and they decided to change it to the community center because they wanted more younger people to come in there and use it. Well, this is a great location because it's the middle school, and you got Lakeland School, so it's walking distance. It's going to come down to price for me, but I think it's an excellent idea, and I hear it all the time. Why can't we get a Red Lobster or a Olive Garden or something like that? Well, if you have enough people coming to the mall every day, that should attract some big businesses that want to do business in the mall or the surrounding area. So I think it'd be an economic boom for the city. So thanks for the plan.
Thank you.
Councilmember Meske.
Thank you for your presentation. It was better the second time. Thank all the Wilmer 10 for the opportunity. You did cite our mission statement earlier, and I would direct you to the next page. It actually has our resolution of our priorities, and on there, the top facility priority is the City Hall. The third on the list is the Community Center. The rest of them have been done. These sit there, and we know they need to be done. The building has served us well. I mean, it's been a great building from when it was a clinic all the way to its City Hall times, but it's an old and retired building. This was I think the only opportunity that is going to allow this project to happen in a timely fashion. Finances are going to be the lens that I'm looking through this as well. We're sitting at a point where I don't believe we really should go in to a lot of reserve funding or changing any of our current policies on finance. And so it's going to be a matter of finding that sweet spot. And I think I have no problem letting this move forward and having that dialogue. How long that lease period is going to be, I think, pivotal. And I think that's about it. Because I was on a lot of those committees. And this, I will tell you, and I've told you before, this was not the spot that the people wanted, the community center, City Hall. And you've stated it as well. But right now, this is probably the most viable option for that to happen. And I was pleasantly surprised by what it can be. I've seen a lot of schematics of what it could be at the other site. This was something that was never given to that committee early on. So I appreciate it very much. And I will be in favor of moving this to the city staff and see if they come up from the financing, because that's what it's going to all really hinder on. So thank you again.
Thanks, Sean.
Councilmember Alvarado. You're muted, sir.
Yeah, I had to clear up my screens. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, the Wilmer 10 and Dion, for a presentation. It's an exciting idea, but I've also heard from young people, and they're also a little concerned about, is it going to be something that they can get around and be excited about? We currently, one of the issues that we had on the task force was, well, can't we remodel the city hall? Well, we decided it was a 50-year-old plus building, and it wasn't going to be feasible for us. You're saying that this will be feasible. I just hope that we can have excitement for the structure that we would have if we were to build out on the property that we came to a consensus on. I think it's going to come down, like Councilor Rusky said, in hospice, it's going to come down to financing and dollars. I am concerned about where we are with COVID and what's happening. I don't know that we have to rush right into this and dot the I's and cross the T's at this point. I think we have to be cautious. I believe we have to be cautious as we move forward because of the uncertainty of the future. And I know I've been banging that drum, and I'm going to continue to bang the drum until I feel confident in it. But right now I'm worried about the future and the finances. And I would also want an independent engineer to review the structure to make sure that we're got a sound building to deal with personally. So thank you.
Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully I'll be the voice from the sky. Thank you, Mr. Warren, and thank you, Tawisha, for the time that you've put into this and for presenting the information. I'm not going to reiterate what everybody else has said. Price. We can't expect to get something great for free, but I think that that's going to be a pivotal part of this discussion. I do really like the idea of taking a progressive approach on this project, specifically the community center City Hall, because the City Hall is what runs the city. And so if we want to move our city in a particular direction, then there are all kinds of variables that people would argue we have absolutely no control over. But one area that we do have control over is what we do with our structures. And if we take a creative, inventive approach in what to do with our structures, and especially in a day and an age where the big box, mass merchant, online retail world is ever changing and our timelines are speeding up, I think this is one area to do it. As was proven with the Midwest Technology Campus, we took a piece of property and utilizing the capitalistic nature of society and business people locally, we were able to repurpose that entire area into something new, and that's quite exciting. So I see the opportunity here to do some of the same. I guess for me, I think the most pivotal part in actually moving forward with this, I do believe that it should move forward, and I would suggest the necessary action to allow staff to do such in moving forward with this planning and overview. I think the pivotal piece is going to be beyond price. The pivotal piece is going to be transparency and addressing that elephant in the room, in that there is this idea that continues to be very pervasive more and more in our culture, and for sound reason. A little bit of distrust in government and distrust in big business, and anytime you're talking millions of dollars, people's ears perk up and they pay a lot of attention to how the money's working, where it's working, and whatnot. I believe that this can be done, but it can also be done correctly and with good justice to our taxpaying citizens in terms of transparency. If the citizenry and our council is allowed the opportunity to see the transparency in the process and allow the public to see that everything is being done on an open table with open doors and with open numbers for everybody to see and understand, that will eliminate a lot of the conflict that might arise otherwise. And so I would just encourage, if and when the proper time comes to move forward on this, I would encourage that level of transparency in order to get that public backing necessary to move forward with a project that could really be a positive catalyst for not only city operations, not only the senior center, the community center, all of our city staff and agencies that work within the city and under the city, but the public and the business community in general. I think that's going to be a pivotal piece. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your work on this.
Thank you.
Councilmember Davis, followed by Councilmember Nelson. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you for your presentation. I guess I've had, citizens contact me, both as many want it as don't want it. The ones who aren't exactly excited about it, they're just worried about the mall that's attached to it. And I guess that's one of my concerns. But also the finances right now with the virus. Is this something we would have to decide right now, or would you be able to wait? Or can we decide now and wait? You know what I'm saying? Because of the finances.
Right.
Mr. Warren.
Councilperson Davis, so what we're hoping for tonight is a green light from the council so that we can investigate this, because many of the things have been brought up tonight are about the price.
Yeah.
And so until we're able to sit down with city staff.
Unmuted.
And then just program it, or the needs program, and see what you need, like Councilperson Osmus mentioned, that the shop. And so we were at the senior center today, and we saw how large the shop is. There's room to build a much bigger wood shop in this space. So, but we need to sit down with the city staff and say, what do you need in both things? Design it, and then get prices, and then come back. And we need to be able to prove to you that we can do it for less money than the one on the north side.
Right.
I mean, that's why we're here. We think on location alone it's the right spot. Putting money aside, it's a better location in our opinion. But on top of that, we're saying, hey, we'll put you in a better location, plus we should be able to save money.
Right. And it is a good location. My kids were just at the community center for an event. And so when I hear about it being near the school, I think how many more kids could come to something there. I mean, it's a great location. So thank you again.
Mr. Warren, when you speak, just make sure you stay close to the mic, because the three councilors are having a little bit of trouble hearing you. So just stay close to the mic with your mouth covering.
Do you mind if I take this down?
That's your choice. When you're presenting, according to the city attorney, you do have the option to remove your mask when you're presenting if you choose to. That's a personal decision.
I'll just remember to speak this way. I want to keep looking at people in the eye, so I can't forget.
Right. It's a little tough. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor Calvin, and thank you, Mr. Warren. I hope that the council will receive this information as an opportunity. I do think it's an opportunity for us to look at this. I have received comments, both positive and negative, about the location. But I do think the main thing for me, and when I spoke to you and some of your other members who were lobbying us, I think the concern that I have is that we be honest with whether we can afford to do this right now. And before we start designing and spending money, or for you to spend additional dollars, I really think that we as a council need to make a decision. It was just in May that we put this project on hold because we didn't have revenue source to fund the bonds. And I really do think we need to take a hard look at, can we use any reserves? What is it we should be doing before we commit to another location? I personally had embraced the location that was chosen by the task force and could see some real possibilities out there for Willmar and future along that corridor. So I'm having a little hard time letting that go. Your drawings are very nice. I have seen other projects in other communities that have worked for malls, et cetera. But for me, it really comes back to whether we can afford to do this. And before we just give a let's go ahead, I hope that the council would take the time to review what our funding would look like. How would this work? And that would be my request tonight, is that we do receive this as an opportunity, but that we review what our financial possibilities are.
Thank you. Additional comments. Councilmember Schwantes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question was asked about contracts that might have been signed and in place right now. It's my understanding that when we did get the news earlier this spring that the sales tax numbers were not coming in as anticipated, which today I believe they're in much better shape than we thought that they would be. But at that point, we made the decision to not sign those contracts. So it's my understanding that the contract with the architect nor the construction manager at risk have been signed. There's been some discussion about the design of it, and I just want to make sure people understand that that is a whole nother process in and of itself. There might be some general overarching concepts of what this might look like, but to Councilmember Alvarado's point of view or point in regard to the youth, we would have focus groups, and especially regarding the community center, and I think it would be very appropriate to invite the youth to be a part of those so that we make sure that we are designing it, but that I think is a little ways farther down the road than where we're at right now. And the comment before we go ahead and make a decision, I don't think the question tonight is make a decision to go forward with it. It's, are we interested enough to explore this concept and find out more information? And so having said all of that, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to direct city staff and our city attorney to explore the pros and cons, the costs, and possible financing options for the redevelopment of the former J.C. Penney store at Uptown Willmar as a separate legally described parcel for use as City Hall and the community center.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to pursue looking at the costs and financing options and direct staff to work with the city attorney and Willmar 10 to develop that. Am I hearing that correctly?
Correct.
Okay.
To explore the pros and cons, the costs, and possible financing options for the redevelopment of the former J.C. Penney store at Uptown Willmar as a separate legally described parcel for use as City Hall and the community center.
Okay, and we had two council members wishing to second it, Councilmember Meske and Councilmember Osmus. So the scribe will choose one.
Well,
I didn't hear who it was. I guess she's saying it's Councilmember Nelson. I'm sorry, Councilmember Osmus. Additional comments to the question? Councilmember Osmus, called by Nelson.
I'm just wondering if at this point, if this passes and we do agree on the JCPenney's location, at what point do we factor in the possible resale of the present community center location, the possibility of Rack 8? That hasn't even been discussed yet, I understand that. But if that was to go into the new City Hall space, those are two properties that we could get revenue from to go towards the cost. And then, of course, and you've also got with what would happen to the present City Hall. I would advocate that it should be parking lot for the city auditorium and some green space for that area of town. But when does that come into when we're talking finances and whether and what exact amount we are going to have to be looking at, when do we get those kinds of numbers in this process?
Well, I'll give you my opinion. My opinion is that from what I heard of the motion is you're going to identify cost and you're going to identify financing. So that would then be put in the hands of the city administrator and his staff to work with the city attorney to develop those options to present to you, either to you or as the full council or to the finance committee to then bring a recommendation forward. That's how I would see it. I don't know if I'm seeing heads nodding in affirmative. Mr. Graham, is that kind of how you understand it as well?
That would be my impression of it, yes.
Okay. Council, that's your question?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson, followed by Councilmember Meske.
Thank you. I think you did just help clarify. This is not, we're going forward. This is, let's look at this opportunity and see how we might be able to engage it. I also think that there is an opportunity for us to engage with the community to see what their response is to this. And I hope that we will allow for some of that to take place also, as I've heard that as a request also, and that it be more looked at as a community center. I know that that the senior club and they're very important. It was reached out to them, but I also think that we have an obligation to the community to engage more than just the senior club and the current community task force. And I've spoken to one of those members and they feel that way too. And so I would hope that we use this as an opportunity to help us make the right decision for a building that is that should last this community for a long, long time. And I feel strongly about that obligation.
Councilmember Meske.
Just a couple comments based on Councilmember Osmus's discussion of finances and a little bit about Councilor Plowman's thing about transparency is you have a $10.5 million project, and you can save me 20%, I hope that happens. But of course, we also have $2 million coming from local option sales tax for the community center. That number doesn't buy a community center. That number, because I am the one that pulled that number out of a building study, that is what was to renovate the current community center back to where it was. We never knew that. So if you take the $2 million off, we're still left with $8.5 million, minus 20%, hopefully, to finance. And anything has to happen. So, I mean, I know we're going to send it to staff, and that's what the motion is if it passes. However, I think if the concerns of councilors are that we don't want, because for me, I don't think tapping into certain reserve funds is appropriate for this particular project. That kind of stuff has to be relayed to city staff, because what we don't want to have is it come back and it's unappealing because of the financing options. So hopefully there are several options available for financing when it comes back, because I share those same concerns as how do we make those numbers jive without going into it. How long does the lease period happen? So if there is additional taxation to pay for those things, if that's an avenue, what does that look like instead of paying? Because for us, we knew we could not do it all up front. $8.5 million in 1 year was not palatable for this council. But if you spread it out, maybe that is. So I really want to see some variation in that. And so I'd say if council members have concerns about that financing, we need to relay that to staff. How to do that, I do not know. But ultimately, we're going to need some extra options, and I hope we see a variety of those.
What appears to have worked well in the past, and I don't want to speak for our administrator, but is if you have ideas, send them to him so he knows what to put in the tool chest. Brian, do you have comments about that? I'm sorry, Mr. Gramitz.
Mayor and council members, it will be part of the discussion, and we'll try and list every option available, and ultimately it's up to the city council as to which options they want to choose. There may be some unpalatable things, and you don't want those. But ultimately, if you want the structure, you want the remodel, to occur, the money's got to come from somewhere. So we'll lay them all out, and it'll be up to the council to pick and choose which ones they want to use.
Additional comments to the question? I believe we're ready to vote. Councilman Schwantes, can you paraphrase or reread your statement? Because I'm not going to get it right.
Certainly. So the motion is to direct city staff and the city attorney to work with the Willmar 10 investors to explore the pros and cons, costs, and possible financing options for the redevelopment of the former JCPenney store at Uptown Willmar as a separate legally described parcel for use as City Hall and the community center.
Okay. Roll call. I'm sorry, Councilmember Nelson.
Is that the same motion that she made?
Yes, ma'am. I read it right off of a sheet of paper that I'd done prior to coming to the meeting.
Okay.
Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Metzke.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Mr. Warren, thank you for your presentation. Mr. Torsia, thank you for being present here. And I think that this is a tremendous opportunity for the city to expand its base. And as Councilmember Nelson said, this is a building we can be proud of. If it gets built the right way, it will last us 50 to 70 years. So we look forward to that. We also understand that Willmar 10 is taking a tremendous risk in coming to us with this proposal. And we know that you as investors are there for the return on investment, and we do understand that. But also, as you've heard the council state very eloquently, and I think almost every one of them stated that it needs to be a cost-effective proposal. So thank you for your work. Thank you for your investment in our community. And I certainly see this as an opportunity to expand the Fifth Street Southeast corridor to make it a gem of our community. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council members.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Public Works, Public Safety Report. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our Public Works and Public Safety Committee met on Wednesday, October 7th. We met using GoToMeeting. Our call to order was right around 5:08. Members present were myself, Councilmember Osmus, Councilmember Alvarado, and Councilmember Nelson. Joining us was our City Administrator, Mr. Gromans, our Public Works Director, Mr. Christensen, our Police Chief, Jim Felt, our Fire Chief, Frank Hansen, our Public Works Superintendent, Mr. Manzer, our Engineering Administrative Assistant, Ms. Elbask, and the West Central Tribune was present. Again, we called the meeting to order. The first items that we discussed were our public safety updates. Let it be shown for the record that they are not attached to the minutes, the City Council minutes here. I would politely request that they be attached to these minutes. But for transparency's sake, I have forwarded all of those minutes directly to all of your inboxes about 20 minutes, 10 minutes ago, something like that. So if anybody has, and I should mention that nothing unusual or out of the ordinary was part of the discussion that night. Now would be a good time to ask a question of either chief. If anybody has any questions, I'll pause. Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll move on to our next item. We discussed our snow emergency policy that we put into effect last year. And staff did bring forth for discussion the snow emergency practices for the Central Business District and citywide snow emergencies. The committee discussed how well things had worked last year during certain snow events of magnitude, and the city experts, our director and our superintendent, were not, along with our police chief, were not recommending any changes for the upcoming season. They noted that our policy did work quite well, and that upon declaration of a citywide snow emergency, the adherence numbers, even as a first-time measure, were quite good, and that the response was quite good. The only areas of interest were large multifamily residential units in which the city has had ongoing dialogues with those individuals, and they are also willing to sit down prior to this snow season, which I hear is coming astronomically quickly. But I'm going to pray that I don't have to put my motorcycle away just yet, and that we're going to get Indian summer. But anyways, they will be discussing the issue for the sake of continuity. The things that have been added is going to be the social media presence, as well as taking a look at the availability of the county notification system for those notifications when there will be a snow emergency. The county does have a piece of software that has an alert system that also contains an opt-in measure for residents, and staff is going to be further exploring on how to integrate the city of Willmar into the Candy-Ojai County notification system. So with that, I guess the only other thing that we were made aware of was the reminder keeping garbage and recycling cans off the streets themselves during snow plowing events. That way we don't end up with flying garbage receptacle projectiles. That would not be good for safety and or cost effectiveness. Moving on was a construction update. Staff brought forth the information regarding the 2020 street improvement projects currently underway. The good news was that most of them are either complete or nearing completion. The First Street project, happy to note that all but one corner, the intersection between 19th Avenue and First Street is being finished out, and it looks as though all the underground is finished there. All that needs to happen is top dressing of the soil at that intersection. Looks as though the signage has been picked up, and I even noticed trucks picking up the signage this afternoon, so that South First Street project should be complete. West Highway 40, there was a lane shift for some time while they were working on utilities and underground. As of this week, the lane shift is moved back to normal, so traffic is flowing in both directions. They will be hooking up to Highway 12. We are anticipating that. And the only other thing that we are awaiting is water quality tests regarding Southeast Willmar Street projects. And once that happens, the regular water connections will be employed. I suppose our engineering staff is with us tonight. If anybody has questions regarding construction projects, I'll pause. All right, if there are none, then we'll move on to our action items. The first action item was a request of the fire department, and that would be to purchase an outdoor community display sign from Quick Signs of Willmar and have it installed at the fire station on First Street. And this is going to be using the CARES money partially that has been allocated towards the city. A little bit of overview. In 2020, the city of Willmar is granted around approximately $1.6 million to be spent in the response to COVID-19. We were advised that several cities have been using this grant for the purchase of outdoor community signs. We have researched that, and we found out that this purchase would meet those requirements. The reason being that a sign as being discussed can relay messages to the community. All kinds of city information can be displayed on the signs, and it is beneficial to the city to be able to communicate with the population driving back and forth. In that information could be all kinds of emergency information, declarations pertinent to COVID-19 and other things, community and city announcements. The First Street location is the perfect spot for the city of Willmar to effectively reach the maximum population of people as the traffic counts are quite high. We received a few quotes for the project, one from Quick Signs of Willmar in the amount of $27,675 and one from Affordable Signs of St. Cloud for $29,347. The amount of $27,675 from Quick Signs of Willmar was chosen, and the motion was made and seconded, and I will enter that motion for purchasing an outdoor community display sign from Quick Signs of Willmar, have it installed at the fire station location on First Street in the amount of $27,675.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to purchase a fire department outdoor sign for community announcements. Discussion. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Isn't there a sign there already, Councilman Plowman? Is that one shot, or is this one going to be attached to it?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilmember Fagerly. There is currently a sign there, but we are limited because of the type of LED. It's not a RGB LED style, so we're limited as to the size and number of characters that can scroll on that sign. And so I believe the thought premise was you can only have so much information per available square inch of signage. And as traffic passes, you only have a certain amount of time to get a certain amount of information to the people. And the general consensus is that a sign of greater quality, higher density pixelation, smaller pixels, and the RGB pixels will be able to relay more information in a smaller amount of time. Does that answer your question?
It does. The old one, what will we do with that then? Just destroy it?
Well, it is not my personal opinion that it should be destroyed, but I guess, let's see, I don't know if our fire chief is with us. Yeah. My guess, and we didn't even discuss it, but it's a very good point. I think the sign should be repurposed, and I see no reason that the city would not repurpose it. We're not really in the business of just throwing things away. Public Works and Public Safety do a great job at repurposing things, so I would hope that that's the plan. But I suppose that could be included in the motion. The motion could be amended, directing staff to repurpose the signage if you'd wish to do so.
Our fire chief is present. Chief Hansen.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, actually the display part of the sign itself is no longer working. It hasn't worked for probably 2 years now. It's just old, served its purpose, caused more computer issues than normal. So the cabinet itself that's out there, we would repurpose that and use that over, but the rest of it will be totally brand new.
Okay. I was just wondering, you could maybe move it to Robbins Island. There's a lot of traffic that goes by there, but then you'd have to repurpose the interior, the gutters.
I think you'd have, yeah.
And that gets kind of costly.
I would assume you would have to dig in underground for electrical and all that stuff, so I would assume it would be more costly, yeah.
Thank you.
I was the fire chief when that sign was put in.
Is that long ago?
That long ago, so it's been there a long time. At the time, it was the latest technology that was available, but one of the things that started causing a problem, even when I was still there, which is 7 years ago, is that the line that goes from the upstairs office has to be a hard line all the way out to that sign in order to get it to change. And so it's very old technology, so this technology is much more efficient, and it would be very cost ineffective to repurpose it because you'd have to run a hard line from a computer to wherever that sign would be set. And the closest building would be the community center, so you'd have to go across the 2371. So I think the chief has got a good plan here of recycling as much as they can of it.
You don't know until you ask.
That's correct, right?
Thank you.
Additional comments to the question? The motion is to have Quick Signs of Willmar in the amount of $27,675, replace the sign at the fire station. Roll call.
Councilmember Davis? Aye. Alvarado?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
Plowman?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Fagerly?
Aye.
Maskey?
Aye.
Schwantes?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. That resolution passes. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next council action request is regarding a change order. I apologize, there's actually two motions here, and for whatever reason, they came across as two, so we moved them as two, just to avoid any mistakes in paperwork and whatnot by regenerating the paperwork. Just a little bit of overview. Project number 2003-A includes the overlay of First Street South from 19th Ave to Trunk Highway 23 ramps. Bids were open on April 20th. Dunn & Kink was awarded the project. Change order number 1 resulted from the following: modifying a catch basin casting to correct curb alignment in the amount of $21,250. Change order number 2 resulted from the following: adjusting catch basin iron castings up to the correct grade and alignment, and that was in the amount of $100. And like I said, I wish that we could have done these in one, but we did them in two just to make sure that we didn't make any mistakes and have to come back and do it. This is all within the project's contingency funds, and so as the project gets closed out, it looks like the final contract amount will be lower than our total amount, which we always like, in the amount of the final contract being $715,143. So the first motion I will make will be adopting a resolution authorizing change order number 1 in the amount of $21,250 for project 2003-A First Street overlay.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve change order number 1 in the amount of $21,250 for project number 2003-A First Street overlay. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes as well. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would make a motion adopting the resolution authorizing change order number 2 in the amount of $100 for project 2003-A First Street overlay.
Second.
Motion been made and
Second.
seconded to approve the project overlay change order number 2 from First Street South. I'm sorry, to adjust the catch basin iron castings to correct grade and alignment. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Sorry, aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes as well. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next issue discussed will be change order number 13 in the construction contract 180701 with MnDOT for the Willmar Y project. And the city's partnered with MnDOT, BNSF, Kennewick County, and the Economic Development Commission to add a rail connection between the two existing BNSF railway lines. The project will provide a direct connection between Marshall and Morris subdivisions. This change order was due to additional design in the amount of $34,114.63 and construction for a water main in the amount of $176,025.29. We have discussed this water main, water line project for some time, and we had originally discussed some rather large dollar figures, I believe in upwards of $1 million. So thankfully, the dollar amounts have been moving downwards, trending downwards, which is always good news. So this does result in a motion where we'll be looking to adopt a resolution approving change order number 13 in the construction contract number 180701 with MnDOT in the amount of $210,139.92. And just as a side note, this is also going to be a 50-50 split with MUC. The city's responsibility of the portion will be $105,069.96. I will enter that motion now.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve change order number 3 of the construction contract number 180701 with MnDOT in the amount of $210,139.92. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Alvarado?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes as well. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is no further business for that evening. We move to adjourn at 6:13, and I would move to file the minutes.
Second. Alvarado.
Motion's been made by Plowman, second by Alvarado to file the minutes. Questions from council? Councilmember Plowman, I have just one request on the snow emergency announcements. If you could just relate to staff that when they're sending that out, when they're doing a snow emergency, to also include the council. Last year, there were a number of times that those went out, and I had requested that we be copied on those before those happened. And so if you could just make a note of that, so that that happens in the future, I'd appreciate that. I received a lot of phone calls in regards to it, and most of the time I didn't realize we were doing it. And so it'd be nice to know that. And if we can just get added to that distribution list, it should be fairly simple. Additional discussion?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Duly noted. That'll be discussed at our next committee meeting.
Thank you. Additional discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson?
Aye.
Fagerly?
Aye.
Metzke?
Aye.
Schwantes?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Alvarado?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
Plowman?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion carries as well. Next, we have the Community Development Committee Report of October 12th. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We met Monday, October 12th at 5:15 by the means of the go-to meeting. Present was myself, Councilmember Davis, Muskie, and Schwanten. Others present was Dr. Ramstead, Director of Planning and Development, Sarah Swedberg, City Planner, Robert Scott, City Attorney, Alex Rao, our new college intern, and he seems like a go-getter, and Shelby Lindrud from West Central Tribune. Item 1 was a call to order, number 2 was roll call, and number 3, action items, there was no action items. Number 4 was discussion items. Additional Renaissance Zone incentives and protections for Planning Commission review and approval, and this was for information only. Staff presented the history on the Renaissance Zone adopted by the City Council on May 4th, 2020. Staff then presented additional incentives and protections to the Renaissance Zone that have been developed and that will be presented to the Planning Commission for review and approval. Council members Muskie, Schwantes, and Davis all voiced their support and appreciation to staff for their efforts to both open up a part of the community to creative proposals and at the same time preserve Willmar's heritage. It was a consensus of the committee to endorse the concept of the changes presented to the amended zoning ordinance to the Planning Commission, which include the Heritage District, voluntary heritage designation, and open zoning. Item B was tiny homes. This was for information only. Staff presented an update on the tiny home standards, Appendix Q, an item that the Planning Commission has initiated discussion of new policies in response to the updated Minnesota Building Code in March of 2020. Tiny home is defined by Minnesota Building Code as those less than 400 square feet. As Willmar continues to see a decreasing trend in household size, we are continued to see a low housing supply. Currently, the city does not have a minimum square footage for building size, but there is a minimum lot size. Staff shared current Vision 2040 housing subcommittee goals, current City of Willmar's comprehensive plan goals, and tiny home standard examples from around the country. Planning Commission anticipates a review of a draft ordinance in November. The amendment will then be forwarded to the City Council for review and approval or denial. Councilmember Muskie stated he would like to see clear direction and some type of restrictions on where a tiny home development would go. Councilmember Schwantes suggested that the Ridgewater College Carpentry program be informed if this progression progresses as this may be of interest to them. One follow-up note, the carpentry class might not be around next year because, I don't know, attendance is down or the cost, so that'd be unfortunate. Item 5, future agenda items, a downtown hospital hotel, RFP, and incentives. This is for information only. Staff informed the committee that a RFP is being drafted that would promote development of a hotel in downtown Willmar with a skyway connection to the hospital. Myself voiced concerns about the length of hospital stays being shortened and/or patients being sent to other hospitals, how this might affect the success of such a hotel would do, and if this project would create a disadvantage to existing hotels. Staff stated a market study would be required to be part of the project proposal. Staff also mentioned that the RFP would be open to anyone who might be interested in pursuing such a development, including current Willmar hotel owners. In addition, some stated restrictions on land use were questions, and staff stated that they would clarify and restate so that it was all-encompassing. Staff will bring this back at a later time when the RFP is ready for committee review, approval, or denial. So if there's no further business to come before the committee, will be adjourned at 6:15. I don't know if there's any questions. And I move to file the minutes.
Second.
Was it made and seconded to file the minutes of the community development? Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes as well. Next, we have consideration of Civic Center Arena Special Event on-sale liquor license permit for the Warhawks. Ms. Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the Civic Center has rented space to the Willmar Warhawks, which is a Tier 3 ice hockey team, and they plan to serve alcohol during the hockey season. We received an application for the alcohol permit from the Willmar Community Golf Club Incorporated, doing business as Eagle Creek Restaurant, and is staff's recommendation to approve the permit.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve recommendation for the Willmar Warhawks to have alcohol at their event pending the approval of the police department. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes as well. Next, we have city council member announcements, and I would just like to make an announcement prior to council members. The Willmar Assemblies of God Church will be having a food giveaway this Sunday, starting at 12:30. It is not income dependent. Anybody can stop by and get a box of food. They will have people there to place it in your vehicle, so you will not have to get out of your vehicle in order to receive it. And it'll be first come, first serve. But they have over 1,000 boxes of food that will be available to be handed out. And they'll be working with the local nonprofits to get the message out on that as well. So again, Willmar Assembly of God will be having a food giveaway Sunday at 12:30. Council member announcement, starting with Council Member Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to remind everyone to get out and vote if they haven't already. So.
Thank you. Council Member Maskey.
None.
Councilmember Schwantes.
I'll pass, thank you.
Councilmember Davis.
Just want to say, be careful in the snow. It's coming.
Councilmember Osmus.
I'm not going to talk about snow. I'm going to talk about leaves. Because this snow is going to melt. Just a reminder to keep your leaves out of the curbs and the street. And as long as you're putting your mower over the yard, take it over and get those leaves out of the street so they don't clog up our sewer system and go into our water and cause more issues. And Halloween is coming. It'll be interesting to see what's going to happen this year. It's going to look different. If you are going to have little ones out and about, be safe, be smart, and hopefully everybody has a good time. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Drive for the road conditions, the snow and the leaves, it's going to be very slick. Your car's not going to stop the way it does when it's summertime, so please be aware of that. I agree with Councilmember Fagerly. If you haven't voted, please vote or plan on voting on November 3rd. And be careful for the little ones. They're our future. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just along the lines of Public Works, and I guess this regards to safety, there's going to be a lot of work continuing on West Highway 12. I travel that road multiple times daily, and I see how fast everybody is driving. There are a lot of construction workers that are right up on the road, and there are a lot of pieces of heavy equipment moving up close to the road. So please, everybody, slow down, because the last thing that we need is a worker getting injured or somebody else getting injured. It's a recipe for disaster if people don't slow down and pay attention to the signs. And hopefully the weather cooperates so they can get those projects done in timely fashion. Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
I will pass. Thank you.
Next, we have council member announcements. We'll start with finance.
Sorry, should have left it on. Finance Committee will meet this Thursday, and as a request for the full council, we will be receiving the audit, and in particular, after our conversation tonight, there will be information regarding fund balances, et cetera. So Thursday, October 22nd at 5 p.m. in go-to meeting format.
Councilmember Nelson, are you requesting the full council to be in attendance at that?
Yes, it should have been sent out that way, and Mr. Graham said he will fix it tomorrow.
Okay, next we have Public Works, Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will be meeting Wednesday, the 21st, 5 p.m. The agenda should already be posted in the box. Thank you.
Community Development.
No meeting.
Labor.
We will not meet on the 26th. We will plan to meet in November for part-time pay scale updates and the handbook updates. Most of our items will be covered under the next piece.
Okay, next we will, I will turn it over to Councilmember Meske, as the council will be going into closed session.
Well, the mayor and I had a riveting game of rock, paper, scissors. I've lost, so I will be reading the statement. We've both have done this in the past. The next agenda item is labor negotiation strategy under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.03, Subdivision 1, Clause B. A portion of the meeting will be closed pursuant to such statute upon a duly approved motion of the City Council. I will now entertain a motion to close this portion of the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Alvarado?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
Plowman?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Bagerly?
Aye.
Meske?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. The time is 8:30. The City Council will now go into a closed session. In this room and those joining us online, please stay if you are a council member. Only City Council and authorized City Council representatives may be in attendance at any portion of a closed session.
Mr. Mayor.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
I believe the request would be to take like a 5-minute break so the people that are off-site will have time to re-engage their go-to meeting. So 5
We'll reconvene
break.
closed session at 8:35. Thank you.